It's Thursday, February 8th, 2018. And we're going to do a reboot. Well, we're going to discuss a reboot for video games. This is going to be my Thursday thing for this week. I don't know. I plan on moving forward with this, but so far, every Thursday I've done something different. My first week it was Origins. Second week it was just, I think it was something on sports or video games. This week we're going to do a reboot. We're going to talk about rebooting video game franchises. Old successful ones, maybe old not so successful ones. What would I do if somebody asked me, and nobody has, and nobody will, but it's all hypothetical. So we're gonna discuss Duke Nukem. Now Duke Nukem released his little video game Duke Nukem Forever or something like that to horrible reviews. It was a game that was basically stuck in it was pretty much stuck in developer hell for over a decade, 12, 13, 14 years. Went from like 1997. I think the game was released in 2010 or 2011. I don't know. It's not important because the game just it did nothing. I mean, it was terrible. Um, but the Duke Nukem series used to be a big deal. It was right up there with Doom and Quake and some of those. And Duke Nukem had attitude. He was, and of course in the 90s, you had to have tude. I hate that word, but, back in the 90s, it's what you said. It's sometimes so. But Duke Nukem fell on hard times. I mean, he was if you figure in 1997, if this game was being developed in 1997, probably if you're looking at a 2-year development cycle, you're going to end up almost at the end of the PlayStation 1 or Saturn's. You're going to end up at the end of their, the end of their run. Because I think about 2000-ish, somewhere in there, the PlayStation 2, 1999, the Dreamcast came out. I mean, it came out on 9/9/99. So, but that came out ahead of time because they knew that the PlayStation was going to be launching very soon in Japan, or the PlayStation 2, and Sega was trying to get ahead of them. Sega was trying to get ahead of Sony and hopefully maybe steal some of their thunder. Worked like a charm. The Dreamcast sold, what, 10, 20 million units, and the PlayStation 2 is the all-time highest selling console of all time. Worked like a charm, Sega. What a great job. Dreamcast, such an overrated console. That's going to be a topic someday. But we're going to talk about rebooting the Duke Nukem franchise. Probably didn't need to say that because we were in the process of doing that. So, Duke Nukem, if you figure they started it in 97, by 99, 2000, if the game is just about to come out and they were doing it for the previous generation of consoles, well, you don't really want to release your game on the previous generation of consoles when the new generation is coming out. So they probably had to go back in and redo some things to make it work on the new consoles. Well, maybe the development team wasn't doing so well with the new consoles and they were having a tough time programming for the new consoles. I don't know. I mean, it's like, I didn't I don't know what kind of problems they really had or why it stayed in development hell. I think there were also some legal issues between a couple of companies. Not to mention Duke Nukem had been out of the loop for a while, so people had kind of moved past him. First-person shooters were taking on more of a Call of Duty, Battlefield, Medal of Honor. Those were becoming your best and most popular first-person shooters. Doom and Quake and some of these others had the more cartoony, over-the-top ones had kind of taken a little bit of a backseat to the more realistic, World War II, World War II, Vietnam, World War One type of shooters at the time. And those games were doing it really well, and people loved them. So Duke Nukem then kind of sat on the shelf even longer. Then finally, Gearbox Games and whoever solved their issues, Duke Nukem finally got released. Well, when Duke Nukem was supposed to be released, you could get away with some of the stuff that he used to say. Now, the problem with Duke Nukem is he is very, vulgar and very, what's the word I'm really looking for here? He's not very respectful of women. And maybe back in the 90s, you can get away with a video game character acting that way. But in 2010, 2011, that don't fly. So when that game came out, it was panned by critics. It was even a lot of the critics, even a lot of the reviews I watched, the game wasn't very good to begin with. It just never found its stride. For I don't think anybody I ever saw gave it a good review. But one of the main things they always said was the caveman like attitude he has towards women, was just terrible. You could handle that, 10, 15 years earlier when you're 10, 15 years younger and it's tongue in cheek and it's a joke. But now that most of the people that played the game were older, they look at it through a different, set of glasses. So Duke Nukem is now kind of back hiding again. We don't know what to. The thing is, it was once a successful franchise. There is a way to bring this back and make it popular. I mean, there really is, but you got to get rid of all of the sexist stuff. It's got to go away. You cannot have that video game character act that way towards women. It just doesn't fly nowadays, and you can't really afford to have a lot of negative publicity on a game that you need to try to reboot. So we're going to have to get rid of it. So how do we do that? How do we reboot Duke Nukem? First, we're going to start open world. Let Duke Nukem roam. Kind of almost in a, not as big as Grand Theft Auto, but definitely dense. A lot of people, a lot of stuff to do. Of course, have side quests, side missions, all kinds of little fun kind of diversions for him to do. And it's going to be him versus 1,000 men. Basically, he's got to take out 1,000 different guys. We're going to get rid of some of that old stuff, because this is basically going to be him kind of training to go back to what he used to do, maybe taking on aliens and weird things like that. We're going to ground him a little bit, and maybe rebooting him. We're going to get rid of the aliens completely, because it's like the goofy looking aliens that were in those games, those pig things or whatever. I don't know. Does it really still fly nowadays? So what we're going to do is he's basically just going to be, what we're going to do is we're going to start him out as kind of an old guy. Old, broken down, washed up. Nobody wants him around anymore. But he still has some of the physical abilities. He's still strong. He's still got good aim. He's still got the bravery and the toughness and the moxie to do it. But nobody wants him around anymore. So now he's going to have somebody kind of take him under his wing, but it's going to be a woman, and it's going to be a very tough woman. She can be pretty, but she's going to be tough, and she's not going to take his crap. And you'll see in the beginning, and these will be the tutorial levels, he's going to act the same way he used to towards her, and she's basically going to beat the hell out of him every time he does it, because she's strong, she's powerful, and she's not going to take his garbage, and she's basically going to beat it into his head. It's like, that is not how you're going to treat me. You're not going to treat any woman like that. You're here to do a mission. That's all I care about. Do the mission. And I'm going to get you back in shape, whether you like it or not, and I'm going to teach you a few things about how to treat women in the process. So you go through your tutorial levels, getting him used, basically you're going to have him getting used to being in in an open 3D environment in a big sprawling open world. So if he's out there in the open world, you have to have kind of a lock-on mechanic, because it's really tough to, you can use a lock-on mechanic. You don't have to if you don't want to, but use the lock-on mechanic like a Grand Theft Auto. And just, kind of you're teaching him, you're getting him back into shape. Then of course, as he's finishing the tutorial levels, you can have him do his little Hail to the King, baby, and then he can start his mission. So his tutorial stuff is going to have a woman who's going to be his superior, who's basically just going to be beating the crap out of him beating some of his old bad habits out of him and bringing him back up to saying, you are a great, you are a great mercenary soldier, whatever we want you to be, but you got to ditch some of this crap, some of this extra baggage you have. So then she basically gives him the job. It's like, there's 1,000 guys out there that are specific targets that you have to kill. They're only going to appear at certain times. Some of them will only appear at night. Some of them will only appear when there's a full moon, when you'll have a moon cycle, just so that you can, it's going to do day-night cycles and weather and all that. So sometimes, somebody that you need to get is only going to come out when there's rain or when it's sunny out. They may be seen at a movie theater whenever it's 10 p.m. on a Thursday. They'll go see a movie or something. So that'll be your time to get that one. But all of them will have some of them will just be generic and easy. I mean, they'll always be on the map somewhere and you can just wipe them out. But there'll, of course, be maybe about 100 of them that you have to go through a little bit more to deal with. Now, being an open world, there's going to be a lot of people roaming around in it. So this is what you do. She basically tells them, it's like, look, there's going to be a lot of civilians. We understand there's going to be some civilian casualties. You just can't let the civilian casualties get over 1 million people. That's right, an absurd number. Because you're in an open world, you're going to blow stuff up, you're going to have a good time. People are going to be collateral damage. So you make it a huge number, 1 million. And then Duke kind of goes, well, what happens if I get to 1 million? What goes on then? And she says, you don't want to know. So, of course, the cool part will be those people that sit there and try to grind it out to get to that million just to see what's going to happen. I don't know. I once played Grand Theft Auto 3, and I watched my stats go up on all of the casualties that I built up in Grand Theft Auto 3. I played that game for dozens of hours. I found a place where you could just blow up tons of them all the time to get the cops pissed off at you. And I racked up a little over 50,000, and that probably took 100 hours to do. Because you have to wait for people to spawn, and you got to, sometimes lose to police and whatnot. So yeah, it's a lot tougher than you think to get to 1 million people. So it's just an absurd number, but if you can get there, they'll have a nice ending. I don't know, they'll have to come up with that themselves. But they'll have a nice ending for you of like doom and gloom for Duke if he kills 1 million civilians. Kill the 1,000 people. When you're done killing the 1,000 people, he just goes, well, I'm done. And it's like, well, what do I do now? I killed the 1,000 people I was supposed to kill. And then she just kind of looks at her watch and she goes, well, when the sequel's made, I'll have another thing for you to do. But it's just a big open world, lots of targets for you to take out. There'll be some targets that are specific, some targets that are more difficult than others. They only appear at certain times for a very small window of time. So there'll be a ton of stuff for him to do, side quests. They can come up with all the side quests. There'll be plenty of, anybody who's made an open world game can come up with side quests. So this is just a little quick way to kind of, I don't have any major story or dialogue. I don't even know what you would name the woman that's going to beat the crap out of him. But Duke versus, Duke in his city, trying to kill 1,000 bad guys. And just don't get those casualties over 1 million, Duke. Don't do it. Don't kill over 1 million civilians. So, yeah, and then, of course, and ditch the chauvinistic attitude so you do not have that hanging over your game when you try to re-release this. It's all right to have some childish humor, but you got to get rid of the chauvinistic crap. It's got to leave. It's like Duke Nukem cannot have a successful game in 2018 and beyond if he's going to have his 1990s attitude. It just doesn't work now. So let me know what you think. That's kind of just a rough idea of what I think. That's my idea to reboot them. So with all that being said, to the troops, past, present, and future, thanks for the freedom.